talking about building hot rods here. We're not talking about sugarcoating. We're talking about everything. Knuckle busting. The rust in your fucking eyes. We're talking about building fucking hot rods.
What's up, everybody? Welcome. Okay, I'm gonna take a sip of this beer here. Red leather, red leather.
Leather and lace.
Red rum, red leather, leather restraints. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of It's All About the Build podcast. Here with myself, Randy, and Elliot. On this episode, we are diving deep into understanding who we are as individuals and how our travels have led us to building hot rods together. We want to show you where we both come from and how we got started. Elliot, how'd you get into this business, and what's the step-by-step?
Where to start?
Yeah.
Where did it all come from?
Oh, yeah. Where did it come from? How did it lead you to where you're at?
So, I mean, in the beginning, there was...
I mean, I'm not talking about when you,
the big
first popped out.
Yeah, right. No.
How did you get into hot rods and liking classic cars?
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, classic cars, we went into it. The cool factor was always there. Last episode, if you didn't catch that, we went into why we build classic cars, and we beat that to death. But I didn't have the normal grow up. You know, I worked with a lot of people over the years, and they always had kind of the similar story where Grandpa owned a hot rod, or their dad owned hot rods, or their dad owned a shop, or whatever. I didn't have that type of bring up, but I mean, I loved Hot Wheels and all that shit. So I went to college, YO Tech. Wow Tech! For all you out there that know what I'm talking about, fucking Wow Tech. I went there, I got an associate's degree in service management and automotive technology. And the whole reason I went there was because I wanted to know how they ticked, like how an automobile ticked. And it wasn't about these 2000s fucking cars or anything of the sort. I didn't care. I wanted to know how these old cars ticked type of deal. And I ended up graduating with honors, perfect attendance awards. I was elected head of the class in some of the semesters and all that shit. So that was the beginning. I didn't go directly into hot rod building. After that, I dove into the oil field for a while and worked on everything from big ass V16 diesel engines to inline 4 diesel Peterbilts, Kenworths, just a bunch of random shit like that. But I always wanted to build hot rods. That was the whole goal. So I mean, I chased the money in the oil field, and that was basically all that was. But I didn't realize that at the time that I was going to learn about hydraulics and get trained about electrical and air ride and all this shit on these big ass machines. It was all preparation to what I'm doing now. I didn't know it at the time, but it was a great foundation, and a lot of it was free training, which was amazing. So that kind of added on top of everything I learned from the Wildtech days. Yeah. And a buddy of mine that I went to college with got me hooked up with an interview for a hot rod shop where he was working at. And basically I was like, this is what I want to do. So, I mean, I was years and years into like being a mechanic or whatever, but it was always about building hot rods. I bullshitted my way into getting a fucking job. It was my passion, which is what got me into it, because I just wanted to do it. You know, if I'm gonna turn wrench for a living, why would I turn wrench on anything but something as cool as building fucking hot rods?
Damn right.
Yeah. So that led me to where I was, and finally got my foot in the door in a hot rod shop. I rented a place, and I was like 3 miles up the road. So it was like 3.5 minutes I could be there. And I literally would try to beat the boss there every day. And I would try to stay there as late as possible with the boss and just absorb everything. But sometime early in it, it just clicked that this is what I wanted to do. And just being around hot rods literally like 6 days a week, 7 days a week, was always there. I was single at the time, and I was 3 minutes from the fucking shop, and my boss was there 7 days a week. And it was just like, I just dove head first. And I wanted to learn as much as I could because every part of it was amazing to me. I was always extremely artistic. You know, when I was in high school and shit like that, I always took every art class I could take. And that's what I see when I look at hot rods and building hot rods, is putting all this fucking random sculpture shit that I used to do and painting and just the artistic side of things into it. I think that's where the love of it came from. But somewhere early, the idea of IBF HotRods showed up. And I tried to, what's the word I'm looking for? I tried to help the businesses. Like, I was so die hard with that business. I would have done anything for that first initial company that I worked for. And because I was so grateful for what I was doing. And all I wanted to do was help build that company. And I realized that the IBF HotRods idea came to me one time. And it's funny, it's all about the build came to me one time at the beginning of all this, like a couple months in. And I tried to express and give them basically past this idea of it's all about the build. It wasn't even a thought of a podcast at that time. It was just the idea of anytime you build something, that's what it's about. It ain't about the money at the end. It's about the whole process. It's about doing it right. That's what it's all about. The build came from. And IBF HotRods came about because I was tired of telling people what I did for a living.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, if somebody asked me what I did for a living, it's like, I build hot rods. And they're like, oh, you're a mechanic. It's like, no. I build fucking hot rods. And that's what it is. People ask me all the time, what does IBF stand for? And they're like, there's only one thing I can think of it stands for. And they're like, it can't be that. It can't be that simple, but it is. The answer is always that simple. Just like it's all about the build is that simple.
So what happened to you like towards the end there at that shop? Because you were talking about like helping to build that shop.
Yeah, I mean, so the years that I worked for them, I took over the social media and tried to build whatever I could, like every day taking pictures of something. Fucking Instagram, Facebook, whatever I could get my hands on, and reaching out and talking to people. And we'd go to car shows, and I'd spend hours and hours and hours after that just trying to find pictures of our cars from a car show. Like, I would just type it into Google and just spend hours looking for pictures of shit that we had, and then just reaching out to them and say, hey man, thanks for taking a picture of our car. If you don't mind, follow us and tag us. And it was just a fucking grind. And it was all because I loved it. I wasn't even getting fucking paid for it.
Yeah.
Because I was just trying to do it. But the way that I had no intention of moving on from that shop. I was in it for life type of deal. And it was a family to me. And I met my wife, who lived an hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes away. And she was on board from day one. But she ended up getting some shitty news that where she worked, they were closing up shop and she had to move. I never met anybody like my wife that was as supportive. She's the first woman that ever apologized to me. So it was fucking nuts. You know, the first time she ever apologized to me, I felt like I had to apologize back because I didn't know how to react to it. You know, but I cared so much about her. I realized that I can build hot rods anywhere. And just throughout the years of working for somebody, there was some telltale signs that it wasn't panning out to be what I was expecting. It wasn't all fucking rainbows and sunshine. There was a lot of rose-colored glasses and BS in the background and just not being appreciated, I guess. But anyways, I decided that I wanted to move with my wife, which was my girlfriend at the time. We weren't even engaged yet. So we packed shit up, we rolled, and we went to Tennessee. Like, we literally packed shit up. Her job gave her 3 weeks to move because she was able to transfer for her business. So we packed shit up and we moved 9 hours away to a completely other state, and we made our way down to Tennessee. And from that point on, as soon as I left and realized that it wasn't all sunshine and roses, my wife and I decided that the next however long it took, I was going to try to learn as much as I could, as quickly as I could through the business process. Mm-hmm. And that was my idea from day one, even with the first shop I worked at, was to learn as fast, as much, as quick, as efficient as possible. And we made it down towards the Nashville area. And I started working for another shop and just started learning, doing exactly what I said. And it was only about building cars. I had no fucking idea that throughout the years I was going to learn more about a business side. Basically, not even a business side, because nobody's even running a business properly. So I just watched and learned what not to do. Basically, how not to screw people over.
Which is crazy to think about, because you sit there and you watch those TV shows and you think that everybody has it all worked out.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I worked for numerous shops. I don't know. I think I've worked for 6 or 7 shops now over the years. Like, this business is a different style of business. You know, a 2-week notice don't fucking work no more. Not in the hot rod world. I don't care who you are. I've fucking quit enough jobs in the hot rod world to know that if I walked in there and I realized that I wasn't learning anything anymore and it's a fucking Tuesday and I'm fucking done and I'm ready to move and move on, I'll tell them Tuesday, and tomorrow on a Wednesday, I'm coming with the truck to pick up my tool. And
Yeah, wow.
but it was easier to do that than to give a fucking 8-week notice because you thought you're fucking family, and it just became a shit show. You know, trying to do the right thing in this industry kind of doesn't work. There's a lot of ego in it. And in every fucking shop I worked at, there's ego, whether it was the boss or other people that worked around you and stuff. So like all this was learned, and 98% of why IBF HotRods became is because I learned what not to do. And it got to the point where I would go work for a shop, and I would work there long enough to know that they weren't going to put me somewhere else because I got really efficient at something. Mm-hmm. And I would talk to the boss and say, hey, I want to do something else, and it just never happened. So I'd only let that ride for about a month, and I'm done. I'm over. It's over. There's enough fucking hot rod shops.
Yeah, because you want to do more. You want to do more than just, you know, 1 or 2 things.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't want to just be a fucking metal guy. I don't want to just be a painter. I didn't want to just be a fucking body guy. I wanted, like...
It's just a waste of talent.
Yeah, like it's all about the build. It's literally like all about it. The whole concept. The IBF HotRods. Like I build the whole fucking car. That was the main goal, was to learn all that. And we decided that I was driving an hour and 20 minutes one way to a shop because I knew it was only it wasn't my forever home, but it was gonna be my home until I stopped learning.
Yeah.
So I spent, a year and a half at one shop. I'd drive an hour and 15 minutes one way every fucking day. I'd take a nap on the ride there, and I'd take a nap on the ride home.
You mean while you're driving?
Well, that's what it felt like. Yeah. But literally, like, I knew that this was the place I had to go to so I could learn this next thing. Mm-hmm. Like, when we first moved to the Nashville area, I drove an hour and 20 minutes one way, or an hour and a half one way, in the Nashville traffic, in the fucking morning, sucked. And then back through in the evening, which sucked. And the reason I did it was because the magnitude of who I was working for at the time.
You're a pioneer.
Right. But, you know, I've worked for people that they were great people, but they were horrible at, you know, giving me a paycheck at the end of the week. So had to move on from shit like that. I've had people that, you know, you've done all the work on the vehicle, and the owner finally shows up, who owns the car, and they won't even introduce you to the fucking owner, and you just spent, you know, however many weeks or months working on this car, and you get no recognition for it.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Because most of the time you put, you know, just as much or sometimes even more work into it.
Yeah, but it's like you couldn't even give the time of day to just be like, hey, this is Elliot. He did some work. Just some work. You know what I mean?
I'm just like some
specific,
fucking, you know, specific.
Just fucking some custodian he hired to clean a fucking shop. You know what I mean? That's all, and that's all a lot of people want in any business. They just want a little bit of recognition. I mean, you fucking spend 8 hours a day there, 10 hours a day.
Obviously, they realize that they're not going to, you know, have their name on the side of the building, but you're not just flipping burgers here. You're
right. Well, you're making people money. Like you get, for every dollar that comes in there, I get pennies on it, but the owner gets not pennies. You know what I mean? He gets dimes and nickels and quarters, and I get nothing, you know? So I learned a lot of that. But then I ended up going on to places that I knew were right for me. So I went and worked for a concourse restoration shop. And the whole reason I went there, like they didn't do a whole lot of hot rod building. We're talking like they did a lot of nut and bolt fucking stickers where they're supposed to be. One of like only 4 left in the catalog of the fucking world.
So you worked on some pretty rare shit.
Yeah, very, very rare shit. Yeah. And just crazy stuff, you know, early stuff, like old carriage style builds where they would build the structure out of wood, and then they would put carpenter nails and metal onto the wood and lead work. And, you know, when we were rebuilding fenders and quarters and shit, it was like it had to be built by hand because you can't just go buy the damn thing out of a fucking catalog. So what you had there had to be rebuilt. Mm-hmm. So the reason I went to that avenue do was because I knew if I could figure out how to do that and then add that later on down the line, whenever it was going to be, because I never knew when IBF HotRods was going to be whatever it was. I knew it was going to be beneficial, and my wife was completely on board. We ended up getting engaged and married while we were down in the Nashville area. Turns out I went and I worked for a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of fucking shysters. I can count on about a fucking one finger that somebody that I worked for that was like literally, I could call him right now and he would help me out no matter what and be honest and genuine about it. Maybe 1.5 fingers, depending on the day. But that's where it come from. When we packed shit up and we moved down to Nashville area, I realized that we can literally build hot rods anywhere because fucking hot rods is hot rods. So, but the way we made it to Indiana is we ended up packing everything up. Once again, we had some heartache in the family, and we were 13 hours and 9.5 hours from anywhere, any family. So we wanted to we lost some individuals. So we were like, you know what? We're fucking going to pack shit up and roll again. So we made it to Indiana. It was the closest we could get. So instead of being 13 hours, 9 hours, we're now 6.5, 7 hours and 4 hours. So we're closer. But when we fucking came to Indiana, we had it wasn't like Nashville. We drove down there and we fucking investigated and did our research. What kind of hot rod world was down there?
How many hot rod shops are around this area?
What we do?
Yeah.
0. There was one shop that was here that anybody spoke of. And the guy who owned it, he passed away and it just dissolved.
Right.
The other day when we went down to Mosier and was talking to that guy, he said there's nothing. He's only an hour away. They're one of the most elite rear end drag, race car shit in the United States.
So when you moved to Indiana, did you buy a shop? Did you?
Fuck no. We did the same thing we did when we went to Tennessee. We rented an apartment and moved here because we had 3 weeks to do it again, just the way that it's structured with my wife's business. And we came up here and we decided that it was time to try to do it ourselves. So literally, we came up here and we moved into a fucking apartment and we were the whole house search and shit like that. So the first month that we were here, I just drove to everywhere around the area that I thought had anything to do with hot rod building and just introduced myself and said, this is what we're doing and all this stuff. And I put out some bullshit on Facebook and closed group Facebook pages and stuff and was like, I'm here. This is what I have to offer and I'll come to your house and build shit. So then I started going to Michigan, back down to Tennessee area, just all over the place, and found myself in big collections of cars and was just doing that until we finally found a place to do it ourselves. And we finally bought a property and built a shop. The rest is history now. I was just driving to people's houses and working on their shit. I was a mobile mechanic for classic cars, which there's a demand for that. So if anybody wants to do it, here's your fucking sign, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to do it. I would rather build the car here at the house. But if you like the idea of mobile mechanic and you like classic cars and shit.
Classic rock is excellent.
Right. But there is a demand for that. And I found myself in large collections all over the, Midwest.
So for the people listening, if you're unsure about, not even unsure, but if you're unable to get into a shop or start your own shop, you can literally be a mobile hot rod builder or, mechanic, whatever you want to call it. You could literally advertise yourself as a mobile mechanic, mobile whatever, and go to people's houses and do it at their house. And if you're good enough at what you do, you can tell them, you can show them how to do it as you do it.
Yeah, I was advertising myself as no matter what I do, at that time it was $50 an hour. No matter what I do, it's $50 an hour. So if I'm driving to your house for 4 hours one way, it's $50 an hour. And when I drive home, it's $50 an hour. But when I get to your house and you need metalwork or welding or fucking, you need me to put windows in, you need me to put windshields in, chrome, polishing, whatever, electrical, mechanical, whatever, it was $50 an hour. And fucking people were paying me when I was going to Pittsburgh to work on that dude's. Well, I come and hung out with you for a minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was fucking 4.5 hours or however long it takes to get to Pittsburgh. How long does it take to get from Pittsburgh?
That was 6 hours.
Yeah, so 6 hours one way at $50 an hour. I was giving that guy a hell of a deal in his eyes to come to his place and do it instead of him taking it to a shop or whatever. that's how it started. And then we finally bought a property with a tiny little fucking shop on it, a 1-car garage with a little workshop on the side. And I got hooked up with a guy here, and he had an Auburn, so I started working on his Auburn.
And for people who don't know, explain what an Auburn is.
Just look up Indiana and type in Auburn behind it, and you will know what Auburn is. It's an old car, Auburn Cord Duesenberg. Google search Auburn Cord Duesenberg. Auburn, Indiana is where they manufactured these cars. They're no longer made, obviously, but they are a massive collector.
Because they're very rare.
Very rare, and in this area, it's very big. There's a whole Auburn scene, a whole Cord scene, and a whole Duesenberg scene, and they're good people.
They even have rallies and shit.
That's fuck
crazy.
Yeah. So after we got here, we put money into building a shop. That was finally a home that we could bring something here and start working on shit here. And then the shop started getting built. I didn't have insulation or nothing. And I started getting cars lined up to come in. Mm-hmm. And I was telling people, it's like, I don't have a fucking full shop yet, but this is what's happening right now. The rest is history now. Now we have a running operating shop. It's not 100% finished. We don't have 100% all the fucking tools we want, but just literally from a year ago, it's insane to think of where the fuck we're at in 1 year.
Yeah, that's gotta make you feel good.
Yeah, it's literally like last year at this time we had nothing. This year we have 3 builds going on in the shop. We got another one under contract waiting in the wings.
Mm-hmm.
We have people calling, wanting to sign up with us. It's nuts. It's crazy. So that's fucking IBF HotRod in a nutshell, basically. It got long-winded there, but it's the whole story. Probably left a bunch of shit out, but
no, that's a good detailed version of what happened.
Yeah, I didn't even bring up how the hell you got here. Sitting in fucking middle of Indiana, just like us.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I could add before I want to hear your side of the story is throughout doing all this, I knew people I follow on social media and all that shit and read the books and the blah, blah, blah and the fucking motivations and the entrepreneurs and all this shit. Like, that's why we did this podcast, to help build our brand and basically put ourselves somewhere where you can find us 24/7 and get a perspective that nobody talks about. And that's what this podcast is all about. All of our other social media shit and our outlets is just entertainment purposes and at the same time motivational purposes to fucking get out there and build your own fucking stuff.
But entertainment, but also informative.
Yeah.
To the listener, because the listener is most likely going to be into cars.
Yeah. I can't imagine somebody going to sit through my fucking stories. Your fucking stories.
Yeah, well,
if they don't have any interest in building hot rods.
If they're interested in who we are, they might be interested in this episode or whatever. But if you are interested, thank you very much.
Like, share, subscribe, follow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's kind of everything in a nutshell. The IBF HotRods, it's all about the build, all the social media shit. It's set ourselves apart from every other shop and let them know why we're fucking doing this stuff. Like I said, I learned a lot about what not to do and how to treat people. Like anything business related, anytime you do something for somebody, like there's no half-assing. There's no it's not a paycheck. You know what I mean? It's not any of that shit. It's just not. And that's what we're trying to get across here, is it's all about the build. Part of the build is customer builder relationship and the whole fucking 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get off my bullshit. And Randy, I want you to let the listeners know pretty much the same thing, the how, the what, the where, the when, where it started, where the drive came from.
Yeah, so as a kid, I was cars, playing with cars in the dirt and whatever, and making little tracks and blah blah blah. Like you said, I didn't have that upbringing. Like my dad owned a shop, or my uncle owned a shop, or whatever, and I didn't get into that. I wasn't able to have that that kind of an in to this industry. For me, my end was back in the day watching Overhauling and Monster Garage and, Jesse James and, the Tuttles and that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? The Tuttles, I kind of, that was...
Well, it became a little bit more drama infested than it was
Well,
I'm building bikes and shit.
I mean, it was a TV show, and yeah, there was a lot of drama, and there's a lot of drama on any kind of show like that. But
they got to get the rating somehow.
yeah, for me, watching Orange County Choppers, like I respect their what they are, but I was never into their bikes very much. But Jesse James, I was really into his bikes, that style bike and chopper and stuff like that, and watching overhauling and then that was my end. Watching these guys do this, and I was like, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could build something with my bare hands like that. Just burning metal, cutting metal, and shaping metal, whatever. But I was not I wouldn't say like a poor class, but I was like lower middle class era. But so we didn't have a lot of money. But growing up, going through high school, graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I know what I wanted to do, but I didn't know if I was good enough to do it. So I just kind of coasted through, and found myself in Pittsburgh. I just needed to change the scenery. And I wanted to say my first job. My second job was actually just washing cars. I was just at a dealership, just washing cars at a dealership, and I would just that was my first experience with wrenching. But I did that for a while and started selling cars, and I didn't think that was for me very much after like 6 months, because it was long hours and you didn't get very much money out of it. I mean, because I wasn't much of a salesman, but I went back to washing cars, and then I was asked by the head mechanic if I wanted to turn wrenches, and I said, of course, yeah, that's what I want to do. So I learned under him and a couple of the guys that worked there, and it was only like maybe 2 years later. I didn't really do that very much, but a guy who I actually lived with, I started hanging out at this hot rod shop after work and helping this guy out, and working on his motorcycle after work. I was like, man, this place is awesome. This is like a, this is what I watched on TV growing up. This is it. This is, and this guy Elliot, he pushed me to quit this job and come over here. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I can't do that. These guys are building hot rods. I can't do that. He's like, no, you can do it. You can do it. So after a while, I grew up courage, go in there and talk to him, talk to the boss. And what do you know? I get an interview. So that was my end of the hot rod world. I ended up getting a job.
Just walking in.
Yeah.
Which is going to be another podcast topic of how to get the fuck in, how to get in.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because like you just said about the intimidation.
It's very intimidating when you don't grow up in that, you don't grow up around that, it's all new to you, and you don't think you can do it, but it turns out you can. You just have to pay attention and learn.
It's a lot of like, not common sense, but
well, it is a lot of common sense.
So does this look like it's going to work?
yeah. It's a lot of common sense, but it's a lot of, you just pay attention to what you're doing, and in our modern era, you can basically research anything you're trying to find. That's how I did it. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's how I did it when I first started there, was Googling. I just Googled it, YouTube it if I needed to, use whatever I needed to, not just that. If there was somebody that I worked with that I could lean towards, I would look towards them. But,
So you got in, moved out to Pittsburgh. You worked at, I don't remember, did you say where you worked at? The dealership?
You worked
at a dealership.
It was a Subaru dealership. Right. I was a Subaru mechanic.
Right, but when you worked at the dealership, you finally got the hot rod shop job.
Yeah.
Just walking in and saying, hey, how the fuck are you? My name's Randy Bunting.
Yeah. Turned out to be the greatest decision of my life, because I actually learned what I actually want to do with my life.
Yeah.
That was my turning point in my life.
So we went into me having, working for fucking 7 or 8 different shops.
No, I did not do that. I worked for one hot rod shop before I came here.
Yeah.
One hot rod shop, but I definitely learned a lot.
So what brought you to Indiana? How the hell did you get here? Because I don't recall asking you to fucking come out here.
So I started this hot rod shop, and actually at the time, I was living with you at the time.
Yeah.
Very briefly, we lived together because
I moved.
Because you literally bought a house and then you moved.
Yeah. But I didn't even say that in the story. Bought a house and then we fucking packed shit up and moved.
Yeah, it was like 3 months. I don't even know. But yeah, I lived with you for a little bit, and then around the same time, I actually met my future wife, and I got engaged, and then ended up buying a house for myself, and I moved in with her, and I ended up getting married, and a year and a half goes by. Things went pretty. That's a nice looking Modelo you got there.
I'm listening.
About a year and a half goes by. I went through a pretty decent trauma with that involves a car. I was not doing anything car related other than pumping gas, but that's it was pretty decent trauma. But then after that, went and healed, and me and my now ex-wife went through some trauma of our own, and we had to move on from each other, and that was the perfect opportunity to follow that IBF dream, which we talked about way before you moved.
When was the first time you've heard about IBF Hot Rods?
Well, I mean, I couldn't tell you officially, but from what I remember was at a bar. I think we were just kind of bullshitting, and you said I don't know exactly how the conversation went, but you were talking about IBF HotRods, and I was like, man, that's awesome. I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
You know? Because it's just everything it just keeps growing from the moment that I went there, and it was just one thing after another, and it was just like, this is the direction that we need to go. But life happens a certain way, and it's not a straight shot. It's not a straight direction. It's a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs and backwards and forwards.
We never thought, when the IBF Hot Rod started, it was like me and the wife, buy property, build this shop, and I'm just going to be out there by myself, hanging out, fucking building hot rods.
Yeah.
And Randy, at the time, we'd see each other once in a blue moon. I'd come into town, or he'd come visit, or whatever. It was always like, man, life was in two different directions. It was just a pipe dream, I guess. It was just a bullshit conversation around the beer can.
Well, being married to someone that doesn't want to move, it's kind of hard to do.
Right.
But I really enjoyed my job, and I actually saw a future where I worked and where you used to work, and I really did see a big future with that. But the way things turn out, sometimes you just you can't
plan for all of it.
Yeah, you can't plan for what the future holds, and what the future holds can be better sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we never planned on moving to Nashville. We were planning on doing our thing in the fucking Northeast.
Yeah,
in the Pittsburgh area, and had to do what we had to do. And we went to Nashville, and we had no intention of leaving Nashville. And then life happened, and I mean, I hate that fucking excuse. Life happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's the truth.
Yeah. But then now we're in Indiana.
Yeah.
But realistically, moving to Indiana was the greatest thing to ever happen to the idea of IBF Hot Rods.
Right. And that brings me to my next segment there. Like, I came out to talk to you. After all this went down, I came out to talk to you and sat down, and we actually talked about it, and we're like, well, let's make this thing happen.
Yeah.
But with you just building a building and not knowing what kind of work you're going to have, it's kind of hard for me to just pack up shop and come out.
Well, not only that, it was kind of like, can I even have somebody come out here? Like, I don't even know how the fuck to do it on my own, let alone bring somebody else in. And then, okay, I got another car under contract or another build under contract. But it was like, I kept putting excuses in front of the whole situation. So it's funny because my wife, like, she's been the biggest. IBF Hot Rods wouldn't even fucking be a thing if it wasn't for my wife. Like, it would still be a dream instead of a reality.
Right.
She's been the backbone of all of it and the motivation behind all of it. And the reason Randy's here, because I kept making excuses for why Randy shouldn't come out here yet.
Well, it's because you thought you weren't ready, and you were feeling hesitant about it. But anybody can understand that. But
I wanted to make sure. I mean, it was hard enough for me to find all this work for me to stay steady. I didn't want you to come out here and be like, fuck, what if we run out of work? It's not just me that doesn't have work.
Right. And you made it past all that, and then we talked about the date and time, and I made the decision to put my 2 weeks in and packed up all my stuff and came out.
Fuck yeah. We wanted to go into a lot of detail here as far as where we came from and just the concepts and the ideas. It didn't just all of a sudden happen. We didn't just decide we want to build hot rods one day, so we just started fucking building hot rods. We had years and years of experience, even if it wasn't quote unquote hot rods. It was years and years of mechanical experience, training, fucking the whole 9 yards before we even got into building hot rods.
And it's not just what you learn at school or on the job. That's me teaching myself every night when I got home from work.
Yeah.
Every night I was trying to learn something new. Even if, whatever kind of research I had to do to get that knowledge.
Yeah.
If I was working that day and I ran into something that I didn't know, learned what I could on the job as much as I could, but then when I went home, I researched as much as I could to learn more about it.
Yeah.
And that was my lifestyle. Even now, it's still my lifestyle, but that was my lifestyle. Like learn, because I want to know as much as I want to be able to do any part of this job. there's still a lot more that we both, smooth out the edges on. But
well, it's the knowledge base is infinite. The crazy thing is you can learn how to do it one way, and there's 15 fucking other ways still how to do it.
Yeah, and that's where the common sense comes in. Like
that's like you're saying about polishing the edges.
Mm-hmm.
You can polish the edge with a fucking file, and it's a little gritty. Or you can polish the edge with something finer.
Yeah, and then finer, and then finer, and then finer.
Right.
Until you get the finished product.
Pretty much the key takeaways here is this concept wasn't an overnight type of concept. It's not going to be an overnight success either. There's no such thing.
No.
We wanted to give you an idea where we came from and kind of give you a general knowledge base of why we feel like you should even listen to us. We don't know everything, but we've had a hell of a lot of history. We're going to get into more as far as some of the builds that we've been a part of, especially Randy's background and awards that he's been part of and everything. The key takeaways here is this concept and idea has been festering for years and years and years. I literally had purchased the website. I had the YouTube, I had the Facebook, I had the Instagram for years.
It's ready to go.
I literally paid for my fucking www.IBFHotRods.com for, I think, almost 3 years. 3 years, it was just there.
Yeah.
And I was just paying every year the subscription to own that fucking website before I even started working on it.
But that's how much thought you've put into this. You just didn't come up with this idea and then try to make it a reality. This was a building process.
Right.
It was just a part of the build.
We didn't even, yeah, exactly. It's all about the fucking build,
It's all about the build. Yeah.
And the build starts from yeah. You're absolutely right, Randy.
It's not about just building cars. It's about building your reality and building
the relationship,
progress.
Yeah, it's fuck everything. And that does. We haven't even dove into the business end of things as far as contracts and fuck,
which we'll get into. We'll get into all this.
Yeah, like I said, the key takeaways here that we wanted to talk about was basically give you a little bit of our background, our experiences, and just kind of a direction of where the hell we came from and our story, the IBF HotRods story.
And if you want to learn more, just keep following along. Keep listening to what we have to say.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And like always, cue the outro. And here's to you guys.
Yeah, cheers.
This one's to you guys. Cheers, ladies and gentlemen. Until next week, stay classy, San Diego.
Thanks for listening to this episode of It's All About the Build podcast. Please comment and let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel to follow along, and if you haven't already, check out our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok to keep up with what we have going on every week. Thank you all for listening.